on 6/20/17 at 17:21 hours, deputies responded to a railroad tracks at Jackson Road and Trenton Road, St. Clair Township, referred to as Overpeck. The suspect was shooting at a moving train. The suspect fled the scene, went to his residence at 4100 block of Trenton Road. Deputies surrounded the home. The suspect, later identified as Jacob Faulkner, age 32, exited the residence with a shotgun and confronted deputies. After numerous orders to put the weapon down, Mr. Faulkner pointed the shotgun at Deputy Taylor Henson, who is a 6-year employee of the Butler County Sheriff's Office. A little bit about Deputy Henson. Deputy Henson's age 29, hired as a correction officer August the 2nd, 2011. Promoted to deputy May the 13th, 2015. Employed approximately 6 years, 2 years as a deputy. His file is excellent employee. Going to the next page. Deputy Henson then fired several shots, striking Mr. Faulkner. At the scene, deputies immediately applied first aid. However, Mr. Henson was pronounced dead at the scene. The Butler County Sheriff's Detective Division is investigating the shooting at this point. And we feel, by our investigation and what I have seen, that this is a justified shooting. That will all the evidence and everything that we have as this investigation turns will go to the prosecutor's office, and he will present that to the grand jury for a determination to be reached at a later date by the prosecutor and the grand jury. The actual cause of death will be determined by the Butler County Coroner's Office, pending their investigation. I want to make that clear. The coroner will make that determination. The prosecutor will present the evidence that we have to the grand jury, and they will make a determination as to the shooting itself. I was at the scene afterwards. I've been briefed. I've seen the evidence. And in my experience of over 40 years of doing this job and being in law enforcement, I believe that this is a justified shooting, all I've seen. It's a tragedy anytime someone loses their life, but it's also a tragedy for those that have to take the life. And we take that very serious. And at this point, the investigation continues, but I want to make it clear, we have looked at this evidence, we've studied it, we've looked at it, and again, it is my opinion that this is a justifiable shooting. And I want to put it in other words than what I just read, so everybody understands. The individual, the deceased, according to our witnesses, exited his house, looked to me approximately 100 yards from his house to the railroad tracks, approximate. According to witnesses, he drew 2 weapons and started shooting at a train. The witnesses at the tracks were in fear of their lives. They were stuck. They couldn't leave. They stated that the individual had a dazed look on his face. At that point, he left, he exited, went back to his home. We're in the process of responding to where he lived. The deputies got there. He was in the house. They started surrounding the house. They tried to convince him to surrender. He came out the back door, went down the steps on the back porch with a loaded shotgun. We had a deputy, Henson, was behind cover, a vehicle, as the individual came down the steps, orders were being put out from the deputy, drop the gun, drop the gun. The deputy gave up his cover from behind the vehicle and retreated behind the garage, around the side to the side of the garage. At that point, ordering the individual to drop the gun, drop the gun. And I'm going to guess approximately, probably, in his actions, probably 15 yards, maybe 20 yards. This is all approximate. At that point, the deceased raised the gun towards the deputy, and at that point, the deputy shot several times, and the deceased was shot. The deputies at that point tried to perform medical treatment on the deceased, and that's where we're at this point. I will take questions at this point.
Sheriff, how many deputies were on the scene?
Several. When I got there, there was probably just deputies in uniform. There was 10 or 12. That doesn't count the plainclothes. Anytime you're responding to someone that is shooting, an active shooter, and they're actually shooting at a train, people are in fear of their life. Other departments, I believe Trenton also responded. So several agencies were either en route or did respond.
Was this a freight train?
Please?
Freight train?
The passenger trains only go down that, as what I was told, is at night while we're asleep. So most of them, please?
This was a passenger train?
No, excuse me, my bad. Passenger trains only go down that track at night, if it goes down it at all, while we're asleep. Those are mostly all freight trains carrying freight, coal, fuel. We've been investigating the types of trains, trying to look at the trains. It's a very busy train track. If you've ever been there, you'll know what I mean. You would have been stopped. Any other questions?
Anybody else on leave besides Deputy Henson?
Sure. It's a normal procedure is that the deputy involved shootings, those that are involved, we give them leave, we give them time to seek counseling, and we work with all of them that were involved. That's correct.
Sheriff Jones, was there any indication by family members or Faulkner himself at the scene, did he say anything that maybe he wanted to die this way?
The coroner will make that determination. He was told to drop the weapon. He approached the deputies with a weapon. Was that a form of suicide by cop? I don't know. I don't have the specifics on that other than what we've told you. It's a thought that we have, but that determination will be made by the coroner.
Spelling of Faulkner?
We'll give you the spelling of that when this is over, okay? The correct spelling.
There were no injuries of anybody on the train or officers or anything like that?
No injuries at all. Again, it's an ongoing investigation, but I want to make sure everybody realizes that we believe this was a justifiable shooting. And I was asked before I came in, could you have used non-lethal force? And you cannot in this situation. When someone is using or attempting to use lethal force, the only alternative we train is with lethal force. Maybe in another situation somehow, but when someone is coming at you, they've already discharged a gun or gone several times, and they've been told to drop a weapon, and they're coming at you, you do not have to wait for them to shoot you before you can return fire, period.
And do you know how close, when he was shooting at the train, was it a close call that, a couple feet from an operator or something?
Don't have that information. This is all, this time yesterday, we didn't have a shooting, so it's not even been 24 hours. So it's all turning as we speak. The trains were stopped immediately, and it took a while before we got the trains moving again. When you get a call, the deputies, these are the worst times for law enforcement, when you get a call that there's an active shooter. And as you're responding, you don't know what you're going to get when you get there, but when there's an active shooter, you can always expect that it's not going to be a good situation when you get out of the car. We just had one in Ohio where there was an active shooter. The police officer responded, the chief of police. He wasn't even out of his car 45 seconds, and he was shot and killed. So when you get out, all you know, there's an active shooter. You might have a description of him, you might not. There's people out, so you don't know where it ends up. So you're risking your life every day. So that's where we are right now. Any other questions?
Do we have any reason to believe that alcohol or drugs were involved?
That'll all be up to the coroner to make that determination when they do the toxicology report. And
how long were the negotiations between when he brought the shotgun out and the shot that killed him was fired?
I would assume it was probably minutes. I would assume that could be 20 minutes, could be 15 minutes. Don't have that information with me. But they were trying to convince him to drop his weapon and give the weapon up, and then he took the shotgun and went after the police. And it's sad, again, like I said in the very beginning. One more question.
Just to clarify, just Henson fired shots?
Yes, sir, that's correct. Several shots.